Hey everybody, it's Minius, and I think it's fair to say that the universe the Mass Effect trilogy takes place in is probably my favorite universe of all time. And a huge part of that was the variety of aliens in the games. I literally cannot pick out a favorite species from the series. I mean, my opinion changes week to week, sometimes even day to day.
You need help.
You need help.
But here's the thing. All of the aliens from the first 3 games are from the Milky Way galaxy, and we are moving on to Andromeda, which leads to a question that I am extremely interested in, and that's how many Milky Way aliens are we bringing with us to Andromeda? If you've been with me for a while now, you know that I've done videos on this before, but we recently got a bunch more information on the timetable and premise of Mass Effect Andromeda, as well as a couple more confirmations, which means we need to look at this question again. There are now 5 old races that are confirmed as far as Mass Effect Andromeda is concerned. First of all, humans, who were always going to be in this game. Andromeda has been called a human story. You play as a human. Every BioWare game has had humans in it. The vast majority of fiction has humans in it, so the humans are in. The second alien race that's in is the Krogan. They've been confirmed since 2014, and Krogan appeared in a lot of early trailers. I would have been pretty upset if there weren't any Krogan because, well, they're awesome. But their inclusion is a little bit interesting because we now know that there are 4 major ARC ships headed to Andromeda, and each of them are dominated by a different species, and none of those species are Krogan. Instead, the Krogan must have come on the sort of mothership, as I'm calling it, named the Nexus, and that opens up the door to a number of other alien races that we'll get into in a bit. But on those 4 ships, one is human, the second is Solarian. We've known about the Solarians joining us in Andromeda for a while, even though we weren't really supposed to. A stray developer tweet mentioned how good the Solarians looked, and that tweet was deleted. But the recent cinematic trailer left no doubt that the Solarians are there, and the Game Informer article said they had their own ship. And there's a chance here that we'll get a lot more Solarians than we did in the past. They got a bit shortchanged during the trilogy, so I'm pretty happy about seeing more of them. The third arc is Asari, and aside from the humans, the Asari are the species we've seen the most of so far in the marketing campaign, largely in the form of the character now confirmed as a squad mate named PB. But if you slow down the recent trailer, you can get a view of at least one more Asari. And apparently there are Asari doctors on the human ship, so there's a chance that they play a very large role in this game's colonization attempt. The final race with an arc was only recently confirmed, and it's the Turians, and it would have been a pretty big upset if the Turians didn't make it to Andromeda. After all, they played an enormous role in the trilogy. But one curious note here is, we still haven't seen a Turian. We've just been told about them. We know the human arc gets a bit separated from the arc fleet upon its arrival in Andromeda, and maybe the Turian ship is also separated, but by a significant margin. If that's true, you might not see a Turian for the first half of the game, or even more. And this could have an interesting impact on what kind of Turian characters we get. But at this point, I am totally speculating. What's important for this video is that the Turians are in.
Finally, a human that can hear.
Which gives us humans, Krogan, Asari, Solarians, and Turians as the 5 races confirmed so far. And that's it. You might notice though that this graphic on the screen has a place for 20 different Milky Way species, pretty much every species of consequence in the trilogy, and now we've got to guess on who else is coming along. But before I get started, I need to acknowledge something. You can legitimately come up with a way for each of these aliens to make an appearance in the new game. The question is, will they? This graphic is basically my guess of the likelihood of each species being brought along, and I'll continue to update this as we get more information. But first of all, the Quarians. Will the Quarians be in Mass Effect Andromeda? My answer is maybe, and that's a downgrade from the previous chart. Basically, I find it illogical for a full-on Quarian contingent to join this expedition to a new galaxy. For the most part, the Quarians stick together for survival, and breaking a sizable chunk of the population off doesn't seem like it's in their best interests. But that's looking at things from a fully logical standpoint. I do, though, think it's reasonable for an extremely small number of Quarians to show up. Perhaps some particularly adventurous Quarians that don't really care to return to the flotilla. And my guess is that if you see a Quarian in Mass Effect Andromeda, this is how it will be done. One important question here though, and you can ask that about all of the aliens left on this list, is what do the Quarians bring to the new game? If the answer is simply, it will make fans happy, then it might not be a good idea to bring them along. But if the writers think Quarians will help the story, then that's a much better reason. What about the Batarians? I was actually somewhat surprised to find out how many Batarian supporters there are in the Mass Effect fan community, but their inclusion might not make sense. This expedition leaves 1 year before the Reapers show up in the Milky Way, and at that time, Batarians don't get along with anybody. There's pretty much zero chance that a large contingent of Batarians would be welcome on this journey. It is possible, though, that a few stray Batarians come along. Individual Batarians can get along with other species, especially in mercenary bands. And I think the idea of getting stuck in a new galaxy and being forced to work with and get along with a few Batarians could make for a very compelling dynamic. But maybe Andromeda has enough dynamics going on already. The next two races I'm now tying together, and that's the Drell and Hanar, and they're pretty much tied together in the series, so that fits. One of the writers at BioWare hinted in a tweet that the Hanar might be in the game, so perhaps they deserve a higher spot on this list.
This one is unworthy.
But ultimately you have to ask, what do these two species bring to the table? Would it be better for their roles to be filled by a new species from Andromeda? That's really a huge question with the rest of the aliens on this list. I think fans would like to see these two in Andromeda. I'm just not sure how well that fits. The Elcor, the Volus, and the Vorcha are all kind of in the same boat. They play a small role in the Mass Effect universe, though their inclusion helps flesh things out a bit. And while they're not exactly there entirely for comic relief, that's the role they often fill. I happen to like each of these species quite a bit, the Volus in particular, but do they help the new game enough to be brought along? I think their status is in doubt. Now we're getting into a few races that aren't all that likely to show up, starting with the Geth. Basically, the Geth have dropped down on this list because of the timing of when the Andromeda expedition leaves. It's during Mass Effect 2. Now, Mac Walters said between 2 and 3, but year-wise, Mass Effect 2 fits better, and you might recall the positive contact between Geth and organic species at this time is either completely non-existent or relegated to Legion and his relationship with the Normandy crew. And that would depend on the exact departure date. Basically, the Geth and everyone else are not friendly towards each other. While a trip to Andromeda might be interesting for a Geth, I can't see any organic bringing them along on purpose. The Protheans too are unlikely. There is an off chance that some Protheans made their way to Andromeda more than 50,000 years ago and you can run into them there, which could be neat if you're a fan of the original trilogy. I'm not sure that's a good enough reason for them to be there. It might depend on the story. These next 5 species I'm listing as doubtful for Mass Effect Andromeda, and I really mean doubtful. Some are close to a 0% chance. I'm kind of just waiting for confirmation from someone official. The Rachni, for instance, could be extinct. The Yogg, while popular with some fans, should not be brought along. I mean, you'd have to be crazy or an idiot to bring one of those with you. Just imagine the chaos if it gets out of cryo early. The Leviathans would completely change the dynamic of the game because they're kind of crazy powerful. And the final two, the Collectors and Keepers, are basically Reaper constructs. And we now know, according to Mac Walters, that there will not be any Reapers in this game. Which is good, because I think we need to leave them behind. I mean, they've certainly had their moment. So here's a look at those 20 races and how my charts have moved along as we've gotten more information. There are some obscure races out there that never get any screen time that really aren't worth mentioning.
Really? Well, aren't you interesting?
But what is worth mentioning is that in addition to these, we will have new races. So far we only know of a few, like the Ket. Later on in the month, Game Informer will be releasing more information about the Ket, at which point we might get a better idea of how many new alien races there are in Andromeda. One thing to keep in mind is that pre-DLC Mass Effect 1, only these 13 played a role. I mean, the Batarians did show up later, but basically these others were added over time. The original Mass Effect was a terrific introduction to the universe. So let's say that newcomers to the series can handle humans and 12 other races, although really only 9 species made a large impact on that first game. Now in this new game, we've got 5 locked in already. You are going to have multiple new aliens that need to be fleshed out. So how much room for old aliens is there? The answer, I think, is less than we'd like it to be. This game needs space to focus on the Andromeda galaxy. I'm curious though, which old aliens do you want in the new game, and how disappointed would you be if your favorite isn't brought along? Let everyone know in the comment section below. Next up, I'll be looking at characters and squad mates in Mass Effect Andromeda. But if you like this video, please give it a like. It really helps out the channel. Keep an eye on MiniusGC for a bunch of new Mass Effect videos. But for now...
The new armor reinforcements really threw off the gravimetric profiles. But engines are good to go. I rebalanced the Gilborn coefficients and adjusted the anterior intakes on the second tier stabilizers.
I love it when you talk dirty.